It's just when I asked myself why I kept looking for new things, why I was bored, why I kept changing. I think I was looking for a meaningful and a deeper purpose, and I didn't know about it. But once I had that moment, that commitment really to my co-founders that we're doing this for the long term, I found a purpose that's just deeper.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. I'm honored to have such a good friend of mine on the show today, Tomer London, the co-founder and CPO of Gusto. Tomer is the co-founder and chief product officer of Gusto, a software company helping hundreds of thousands of businesses start, build, and grow their teams. He's optimistic, easily excitable, chronically impatient, and a loving father of three, and a really good friend of mine. Welcome, Tomer. Tomer London.
Boom.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
I'm great.
Thank you so much for hosting me here. We're in Israel, but usually we see each other in San Francisco. You're the chief product officer and co-founder of Gusto.
Yeah.
Honestly, one of the most amazing companies that I know of, not just because you're in an amazing space and you're helping small businesses in an amazing way, but the culture that you're helping build and the mentality that you're bringing with you wherever you go as a person mainly. I'm inspired by it.
Thank you.
And so I really want to thank you, first of all, for the friendship and the mentorship and for agreeing to do this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
10 years. 10 years at Gusto. Yeah, you were doing your PhD at Stanford after you're doing your master's. Started 3 people.
Yeah.
10 years later, do you believe you're there for 10 years?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about this. So I started 3 people around almost 10 years ago now. Now 1,500 Gusties in remote, so everywhere basically. But our main office is San Francisco, Denver, New York. As you said, we're helping over 100,000 small businesses in the U.S.
100,000.
Yeah, and actually much more. This is the official number, but the number is much higher. But over 100,000 small businesses to start, build, and grow their teams. These are people just like my dad, who has a small clothing store in Haifa, and small businesses are just a huge part of my life and a huge part of so many people's lives. And helping them is helping people who are the underdogs and social mobility and people who make the community, what it is, and much more wonderful and colorful. So really feel privileged to be working on this. But to your question about, 10 years, I never thought I'll do anything for 10 years. I don't think I've done anything before Gusto that's been more than 3 years. 3 years the military in Israel. So I really struggled. And even within the military, I changed jobs multiple times. And I always was the type of person who would change and look for the next challenge and get bored really quickly and want something else. And I think there's kind of 2 sides to it. The first one is actually my job as a co-founder and product person in the company has changed basically every year or 2 organically. Being the head of product in a 3 people or a 10 people company is very different than being the head of product of a 1,000 people company. So the job itself really changes, and what you do really changes. But I'll tell you something else, which is more on the deeper level. It's just when I asked myself why I kept looking for new things, why I was bored, why I kept changing. I think I was looking for a meaningful and a deeper purpose, and I didn't know about it. But once I had that moment, that commitment really to my co-founders that we're doing this for the long term, I found a purpose that's just deeper. It's a purpose that's within obviously the customers that we serve. It's a purpose that's to my co-founders, and we're here. We committed to each other that we're doing this for the long term, and we're here to do this. And kind of being there and for one another is very meaningful. It's a purpose around Gusties and helping them achieve their career goals and their dreams. And I think all of this kind of brings me to this point around motivation that comes from purpose. And that's something I really believe in. I feel like it's really easy in today's world where you are so free and open, and you can do anything you want. You go into the world and you can be this or you can be that. You can do this, you can do that. You can choose to solve this problem or that problem, which is the mindset of many, many folks who are starting companies. Having some sort of commitments that you either choose or you fall into or you're born with. Commitment to your family, commitment to your community, commitment to whatever that is, your country, whatever that is a wonderful pulling force to give you purpose. And that's what keeps me going for 10 years now. And I think we're going to keep me going for a long time.
Where do you find that purpose, though, in the day-to-day? Is it in the day-to-day? Is it in the higher level idea of what Gusto is doing to the small businesses? Is it in the friendship that you're building with your co-founders? What does it really come down to?
I think for me, when I ask myself that question of what are my commitments, right? What is my purpose? Then the first question after my purpose is, let's look at my life. Let's look at the commitments that I have to people. And ask myself, how can I do better? So let's start with on my family side. Like, how can I be a better husband? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better family member? How can I be a better friend? And when I look at these, and how can I be a better co-founder and so forth? And when I look at these commitments, when I'm in my lowest lows, when I'm in moments that are that I feel not motivated, when I'm in moments where I feel like that I kind of lost my way and I'm not sure why I'm doing what I'm doing anymore and what's driving me forward. And these are moments that happen to everyone and definitely happened to me along the way. I do that search of, wait a minute, what's my commitments and can I do better? And that just gives me tons of purpose. So I really believe in that point that purpose is in your commitment.
One of the things that I asked you before that really were meaningful to me and I'm going to take with me for a long time was this question of being a good person, right? And this question of what does it mean to be a leader? And at the end, 500 episodes in, I still haven't really figured out what it means to be a good leader because it changes. But one of the things that you started mentioning was this idea of, what is it? When do you know that you're a good leader and that ambition? Tell me a little bit about your perspective on leadership in the day-to-day and this aspiration.
Well, first, I feel like I feel underqualified to give an answer to what's a good person or what's a good leader. But
he's very qualified.
But I'll tell you what I've seen in other people and what I try to emulate myself. I think this journey of constant improvement, when I see people, whether I interview them for a junior position or whether I interview them for running a huge department in Gusto, whether it's an entrepreneur that's raising their first seed round ever, or whether it's someone who's it's their third company, they're raising a late stage round. What I'm looking for and what I've seen as the best indicator for long-term performance is this idea of constant improvement. So looking at what mistakes have I done, and then let's make sure I don't do them again, and I learn from that and move forward. And what have gone well, and how do I make sure to do more of that? And I think that's true both on business, but also on your personal life. Thinking about, your relationships, thinking about people that you hurt because you hurt people. That's just unfortunately, a part of life. Thinking about the people that you hurt, thinking what you can learn from that and how can you do better next time. Obviously going back to them and amending and talking about it and being honest and humble. Like, hey, I make mistakes. Here was my intent and here's what ended up happening. And I'm here to improve and I'm here to change. And we're all here to do this. And I think when you go through life when you think of yourself less of a static thing and more like a living, breathing, changing, well, you are living, breathing, but changing, constantly learning, improving and growing from your mistakes, it's just like a much lighter load in life too, because it's okay. Give yourself the opportunity to make mistakes. And that's really important.
But it's pretty challenging in a world where we're almost being taught to run forward and chase and forget about the past and chase after something forward too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what you're talking about is stopping, reflecting a little bit backwards at what we did and who we are, who we may have hurt, and how to think through resolving that. That it takes a lot of maturity to do that. What do you find works for you as you're able to, because you're helping lead a company of 1,500 people. Yep. Responsible for the day-to-day of more than 100,000 small businesses. How do you have the time to stop and reflect? Am I being a good husband? Am I being a good father? A good leader?
Yeah. Everyone has 24 hours. every day. And it's all a matter of your priorities. So I think for us, it's a part, like for Gusto, on the Gusto world, it's a part of our culture. So, doing these retros, asking yourself what's gone well, what didn't go well. That's one. And just, you make time for this. This is like a part of our weekly operating rhythm, whether you're within a pod of engineers or whether you're within a larger leadership team, stopping and saying, what went well, what didn't, let's talk about it. Let's learn from it and move forward. And it's not about blaming, it's about learning. But also in terms of relationships. So Josh and Eddie are my co-founders. We still today, 10 years in, we have every week, we spend time together and we talk about things and we try to I think we're kind of very reflection type of people. And we talk about these things. We talk about like what went well, what didn't. We talk about hard things. We give each other marital advice. We give each other advice about like, raising kids and I think in a relationship that's long-term and committed, you also have the opportunity to give people advice, like tell them the truth in the face. And that's really important to be on the receiver end of that because, I just had a conversation with Josh 2 weeks ago. He gave me some really, really hard truths to my face about something actually about my family. And that was incredibly valuable because there's just a very few people who know you very well for 10 years and tell you some things and help you then resolve things as a result. Relationships take time to build and that trust takes time to build. That's a huge part of what makes it impact.
10 years in.
Yeah.
An amazing company that is still growing and still making a big difference. And what it sounds from me in your perspective, only getting started and really building it for the long term. What have you learned, not just about building a great business, but building a great culture? You're a part of, I walk into the Gusto offices, besides the fact that I put my shoes aside and I put the amazing green and blue socks. What have you learned about building really a family of 1,500 people?
Yeah. Okay, because a couple of things. I think, so one, we take our shoes off in the office, and, people get slippers so they can walk around, without their feet being too cold. The reason that we do that is when we started the company, we started in our house. Josh, Eddie, and I were roommates, and in our house, we take our shoes off, but we grew up in a family like that. So we just continued with that. And, once we moved to our first office, it just felt very natural to keep going. And, still today, that's the situation. Now we're going to go back, to the office from, COVID and everything. So we'll see how that evolves. Which is, I think, an important point around like culture should evolve. It shouldn't be static. But that's been pretty cool for 10 years now. And we have so many socks. We basically create every 6 months or so. There's a new line of socks, Gusto socks. I know. You got to come visit and then you get it.
I missed 2 collections.
Yeah, you probably missed quite a bit. And people have these kind of wall of socks in their house. Like there's some cool stuff around it. But my daughter thought we were a sock company, actually.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, it's like Gusto socks. Everything's Gusto. But yeah, to your question, so what did we learn? There's a lot, obviously, but I would say, being intentional around your values and around your principles and what makes you, what's authentic to you and how we want to build a company is really important. And if you don't go and define it and do the work, it's just going to happen to you. So culture, either you define it and it happens, or according to what your overall direction is, or it just happens to you and then you need to kind of fight it. And I think in Gusto, we were always kind of 2 steps ahead in terms of what we should be doing according to the book, in terms of like, did you define your values? Well, we did it a little bit earlier than most companies, like when we were like 4 or 5 people, as opposed to like when we were 30 people. Do you have like a career path with like leveling for every single department and all that stuff? Where we did it when we were around 20 people, as opposed to many people wait until they're 50, 80 and so forth. And that kind of being a little bit early is, on one side, feels, as a startup person, it feels like, why are we wasting our time? It's HR stuff. And instead of let's go build and serve our customers. But I think that the other approach looking at this is people are the most important thing that makes your company. They build the product. They serve the customers. They come up with the ideas. They make everything. And if you want to make sure you bring in the right people, you want to make sure you help them grow in a way that aligns with your culture to the long term. And so this is a very, very worthwhile, set of things to do. So I highly encourage, to kind of take this really, thoughtful approach, to a little bit ahead of the curve, spending the time, having the tough conversation, ahead of time to really talk about values.
So it's tough conversation because you, Josh, and Eddie, you came from different backgrounds, different countries, different cultures.
Yeah.
It can't be that the three of you had the exact same vision for how the company is going to look like throughout the 10 years. As three co-founders, where, how do you handle through that? Because this is really, building values for a family. How do you deal with those types of conflicts?
Yeah, let me just say something about family. So I think I learned throughout my time in Gusto, and I think every founder learns this, is that companies are not families. You don't manage people out in families. You stick with your families through ups and downs no matter what. And companies are more like teams, in my opinion. And it means that, we are all here together for a mission. The most important thing is the customer and doing a great job for them. And we as Gusties are important, obviously, but we are only here to serve someone else. So sometimes there's just not the right alignment, like whether it's not about someone who's a bad person. This is not the right time in their career. It's not the right fit for their current skill set, where they want to go to, where Gusto is going. And then you need to part ways, and that's okay. And that's totally fine. So I will highly encourage founders to not use the family language as early as possible, because when you transition from we're a family to we're a team, a lot of early employees may not like that. But it's an important conversation to have. But about your point around founders and alignment and values and all that stuff, actually, we were quite aligned. And I think values is something that you do come from home with and from your life experience. Values around what do you value over something else. So an example of a value is just what I said. What's more important, the customer or the employee? And some companies will say one, some companies will say another. And that's okay. And there's different ways of building a company. And I think Josh, Eddie, and I connected on actually quite aligned on we're here to serve the customer. It's more important for us to have an impact on our customers, for us small businesses and their employees in America, than our teams. And that's a hard thing to say, but values they need to be hard. If it's all do good, and if you talk about a value and there's no trade-off implied, then it's not really a value. It's just a truism. Do good. Of course, everyone wants to do good.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Tomer, thank you so much for sharing this time with me. I really appreciate it. I have a few more questions about you, though. I want you to take me back to your childhood.
Okay.
Middle school, Haifa.
Okay.
What really fascinates you as a kid? You're walking down the streets. What drives you in your day to day?
Yeah. Okay. The short answer or the long answer? I think the short answer, right? So the short answer for this is, I loved books. I loved standing in front of big shelves of books about any random topic and just feel the enormity of the stuff that I could be learning. And on one side, it was intimidating, but on the other side, it was truly inspiring to just see there's so much I don't know yet. And I have my life ahead of me to go and learn that. And I love that. That's just so now as a parent, I try to have books everywhere in our house because I know it was so meaningful to me.
Wow. A specific genre that was the most fascinating to you?
I liked actually nonfiction. I liked just learning about things.
Really?
Having psychology books, biology books, science books, and just anything. Amazing. I just love the idea of learning new things.
Today, something that inspires you, either an event, a person, some mission.
Kids inspire me today. I feel as I have 3 young children, 5, Shira is 5, Kobe is 3, and Levi is 1. Seeing how they develop and learn and grow, it's just so inspiring because, the growth rate and the ability of them to pick up new skills and just seeing how their thought process changes and just in front of your eyes is inspiring, and it's just wonderful.
And what are 3 words you would use to describe yourself?
3 words to describe myself. I'd say I am optimist. I'd say I'm very impatient. And let's see, what's the last one? This family member.
Tomer, toda raba. This was amazing. Continue making a huge impact with Gusto. Thank you for inspiring me for 2 years now. Really appreciate it. Thank you for everything, and stay safe and stay healthy.